Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to present to you today a very profound dialogue with prominent Mexican architect Tatiana Bilbao. Tatiana's work is global. It is very varied and diverse, and her work transcends style, transcends trend, transcends time, and is very deeply multi-layered and nuanced and engaged with place, engaged with people, and engaged with the processes of the place. So I've had a great discussion that I'm excited to present to you that ranges from the mundane to the spiritual. It ranges from very contemporary, the now, to things spanning millions of years. So thank you, and I hope you'll enjoy this dialogue. Welcome to the Boston Architectural College.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
And
very
welcome to Boston.
excited to be here.
Yeah,
Really.
and welcome
very
back to
honored.
Boston, right?
Yes.
You've been already here a
Yes.
few times, and
Yes.
we are glad and grateful and thankful and excited that you could be here.
I'm very excited, very grateful for this honor. It's really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely our honor. I mean, there's a great resonance between what you do and what we do, and as a school of thought, what we really believe in, and the way you approach things in professional settings, in academic settings, and in human settings of all kinds, right? So I think that is very exciting. What has been the most delightful experience for you on any project or anything that you have done?
You know, I recently kind of understood why I always, when I'm asked what is your most interesting experience, I always think of my girls. And I recently heard Isabel Martinez Abascal, who's an incredible architect from Mexico, giving a lecture that I invited her to give, saying that she learned through a very hard process and a kind of extenuating journey how to be an architect. And that she spent hours in trying to masterize how to be an architect. And she did, and she did very successfully. But she never understood really what architecture really meant until she became architecture. And when I heard that, I was like, that's why I felt really that moment into a very kind of defining moment of my life. And it is true. I mean, really, if you understand architecture as I do, like as really the medium in which we are able to exist in this planet, then the first architecture is the body of your mother. Not all of us have become architecture, but all of us have inhabit others to be and exist. So that moment in my life, kind of a lot of things got into place. And I never had the kind of the possibility of having this consciously in my mind of why. And then when I heard Isabel, I was like, yes, that's it, because then I understood profoundly, what a protective structure is, and that's when I when my work started to make a lot of sense. That was right in the moment where we're in the middle of the way of doing the botanical garden. And it's been a project that we have been working for 20 years. We have been working on it. So it's a work in progress. It's an amazing project that it's very little interventions in very specific places in this big botanical garden. But being allowed to do that little by little, understanding what does this former intervention that we had done had really impossibilitated or possibilitated in the garden has been an opportunity of really kind of seeing, and being able to understand what is the power of architecture, literally, with these very few things. And I think that at the time where my kids were born is when we kind of really truly understood that what we were doing in the botanical garden, the strategy was really good, but not necessarily kind of the geometric explorations that we were doing were not necessary. So we thought it was a moment where we started to think that geometry could be used as a tool, and that it could just be very easy, and not so kind of, and not the goal, but the medium, and really that transformed kind of way of the whole rest of the projects came along after that. And then I think little after my kids were very little, we started working with some monks in Germany. That's an ongoing project. Wow. We are designing a monastery. I've never encountered a typology that is really completely surrounded to holding a physical body to exist in this planet as this one. Wow. It's kind of logical, but you don't. I didn't understood it until I really was in the process. I mean, these monks really need this building to hold them, so they could live this spiritual life. No. Right. So this building is designed to really hold these physical bodies, and to allow them to live this spiritual life in full, no?
It's fascinating. If I could make some connections there, because you now very inspiring and amazing themes. You talked about the experience of being a mother and the experience of becoming an architect. And that it's a profound statement there. And I wonder, because the word mother and matter, they come from the same root, right? So what matters? And material also comes from that. So all of these have origins in that, right? So in that sense, what you've just said is utterly profound and perhaps ontologically absolutely essential.
Yes. To be able to grow, in this planet, we need matter.
Absolutely. And we have to work with, and that is what matters.
Exactly.
What matters in the end.
Absolutely.
Right. So that is also very important.
Absolutely.
And the second thing you talked about is the Jardin Botanica in Culiacan. And that is your continuous project, perhaps ongoing into the future too.
I think so too.
Right? It's a lifetime project.
Yes. I mean, I've learned that lifetime is a very different word when you speak with in the context of the monks. It's really...
Tell me more, please.
Yes. I mean, when we started the botanical garden, it was a dream, absolutely a dream. I started working in this garden when I was just doing a very few things. So for me, it was really when I was invited to see the garden, to understand if there was a possibility that I could participate in this project. I was like, how do I make this happen? It's such an opportunity. And then we started working, and it was really... It is still, if I think that day, or that year, still for me, it's a really incredible project, and an amazing opportunity. So working every day with that, I always thought at that time, please let this project never end, And but at some point, I remember I was like, can we start building? Can we do one please thing? And then we started building, and I said, please never end, don't, maybe we can finish one umbrella, but that's it, then let the others take for years. And this is happening, it's taking for years. And I always continue to think, it's like, okay, please never end. It's like we're still thinking on the next little structure that we're going to build. Now we're going to start building new sets of buildings in the south entrance. And we're planning already a greenhouse. So little by little, no? And I'm like, yeah, thank you. Probably this will never end. But then we started working with the monks. And really for them, time, as we understand it, is not really what they live in. They live in a completely different timeline.
Fascinating.
It's really fascinating. So they are here present, with a physical present for a period of time.
Yeah.
But for them, life is eternal. And it is in different expressions and in different ways. So they don't really live, although their rhythm of life in the everyday might seem that they do live very presently.
Wow.
No, they don't live in this present time that we live. It's very different. It's really, really took me years and years to, and I still don't know if I profoundly get it. I know the thing in my mind rationally, but I don't know if I fully understand the same way they do in my everyday life. And this is very impactful also for the project, It's like we're working as regularly we do, and as pragmatically as we all do, architects, and they don't work the same way. It's really, really interesting. And the other thing is, like, it really impacts the everyday in many regards. So, one example, we're thinking really this building is going to be built to last the next 5,000 years, 10,000 years.
Right.
It really is planned as that, no?
Yeah.
So we were having a meeting, one of the most kind of important meetings of defining, this monastery. And we had a lot of concepts to go through, and there was all these monks and the theologists and we, the architects, we were all there in the table. And we were talking about autonomy, because, I mean, that's a very important principle for this place. So we were covering all the subjects of autonomy, from the most kind of profound ones to the most practical ones.
Yeah.
And at some point we were talking about the internet, because the internet, it's fully connected.
Right.
And we were discussing, and we were like, all this, and one old monk, the theologist, was sitting back and just looking at us. At some point he raises his hand and said, "Why are we talking about the internet?" And we're like, well, because, it's like really a profound topic. I mean, if we're talking about autonomy, how are we going to talk about this? And he says, in 40 years, 50 years, 30 maybe, no internet. That's not going to exist. Something else will exist. Why are we talking about it? And we're like, correct.
The perspective is very different.
It's very different.
As to what matters.
Exactly. The same. So it's like, technology comes and goes.
Yeah.
Things will exist and then no longer exist.
Yeah.
That's not what we talk about here.
Yeah, Tatiana, I mean, it's fascinating that, this is a project that I'm curious to see now. If there is any material out there, please point me to it.
Yes.
Because I haven't come across that in my study. But I think I want to make a connection to the pilgrimage path at San Pedro Garza. And this project, they seem to hold something very special for you, as you have already talked about. Can you talk about the pilgrimage path master planning project?
Absolutely. I mean, that is also a project about time, no? Yeah. And the experience of time through the earth, through landscape, let's say, but more practically, I like to see it linked to the earth. But also with a profound kind of spiritual process, no? And I don't think I had understood that project in full. I still don't think if today I was giving again the commission, I would, because what I realize is that, and that helped me a lot to the project that I'm doing now, the monastery.
That's it.
That I don't live this spiritual life.
Yeah.
I have lived a very rational, pragmatic life. That.
Yeah.
And I think that this is ununderstandable for the rational mind. This process. This process of people endeavoring to walk for 5 days or 10 days, depends how long you do the journey, to pay respects to a virgin is something that I never done as kind of in my journey.
Yeah.
I've now follow it. I try to understand it. I of course did it. To do it.
Did you do the 10-day thing?
I did
or
the
5 day?
It was 5.
5 day, yeah.
But
Wow. How long is that? How many miles
I did
would
it
it
5, and then I did it again 3, and one of 3 days. It's 100 miles more or less, 150 kilometers. Depends where you start, because this is a pilgrimage route that draws people from different places. But the majority of the people walk these 100 miles. At the end, and so that's why it could be 10 days, it could be 5, it could be 3. Depends when you start. And as I said, like I never had done it before for a spiritual notion. So I did it already in a rational way because I was commissioned to do this. So that there is a very big difference. And the understanding again of time is completely, radically different. And I did not completely fully understood that I was not able to understand anything, but I did. So when I did, in the beginning, I thought, this project really kind of goes beyond what I can really do. I invited other people. That's what I normally do.
Yeah, you are very collaborative.
Yes, and that's when I said, no, people, we need to do this together, because I'm sure if I don't get it, maybe we all together also never get it, but at least we share it. And then, so then I invited Derek Telekamp, and then we coordinated this together. We invited Rosana Montiel to lead this process, and then we invited people that we thought could bring totally different approaches to the table, and that understood and saw a process like this in very different ways. So invite people from Switzerland to Chile to China, and together on the table, we were able to kind of do these little structures that could, in a way, hold different parts of the process of the pilgrimage, and kind of leading the way of the pilgrim towards this church with this virgin that they devote themselves to.
It's fascinating because the notion of journey, the notion of time, are very important notions, I guess, in most of the projects that you've done that seems to play a role. It's interesting because, as I mentioned, one of my thesis projects a long time ago, 3 decades ago, was on the city of Benares. It's called A Return to the City, an investigative pilgrimage to Benares. So it's about the pilgrimage path. And in that case, it is about circumambulating the city for about 25 miles or so. So every pilgrim goes around that and then comes to the city. So there is a notion of departure and arrival, and that in between there is transformation and the becoming of something else, which is very fascinating. So I think in terms of the monastery, it seems to be a very long journey, an eternal journey.
An eternal journey.
Right? And so that gives a different perspective about what matters. What are you prepared for? what do you need to provide for
Absolutely.
all of that, right? So what kind of material choices did you have to make?
Well, first of all, I want to make a round because you made a kind of the notion, introduce the notion of
Sure.
lifetime project with the botanical garden.
Sure.
And I didn't say that. That, yes, when I was doing the botanical garden, I really profoundly were praying for it to become a lifetime project because I wanted to never end. This journey was so beautiful and so kind of good for me and learning process, etc., that I didn't want it to end. And I always had thought, please make it a lifetime project. And it does seem that it's going to be a lifetime project. But when I started doing the monastery, I understood what lifetime means. And that's very different subjects, no? So one is eternal and the other one lasts while I'm there. And
Yeah.
it's very different. Back to the monastery and really about matters and material. That is kind of the foundation element of the process of thinking of this architecture. So it's really interesting how this building holds a body but exists because of the ritual that it happens on it. And this ritual is profoundly linked to the architecture in such a way that it's defining. So it depends on material, on the material that the building is done with, and the proportions, and the geometry and the proportions. Why? Because this ritual holds itself by the chants that they do within the hours.
Yeah.
And those chants are Gregorian chants that need a very interesting interval or reverberation. And reverberation is done through geometry, proportion, and material.
Yeah. Right.
Accommodated matter.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
composed matter.
Right.
And so we really had to start with that. And what is very difficult, is to understand that on the 21st century, because definitely in the 11th century, when this order was founded and when these monasteries were built to hold this ritual, which then become the ritual, as I'm saying, we could not imagine that those chants happened before the architecture.
Okay.
We don't have records, but these depend so much on reverberation that do you think they would exist?
So it becomes
before?
one body, right? In that sense, it becomes one body.
Yeah.
Because when reverberation is an integral part of that ritual, you are one with it.
And that means with the architecture.
It's just as when I speak, I hear myself. Within myself, it's just another shell. It's kind of an onion.
Absolutely.
Of times. Okay. What kind of material is it?
So
used? Yeah.
we have not gotten into that.
Right.
So the obviously the monasteries were built with the materials that were around. No, this is the 11th century.
Yeah.
So the majority of those were built on stone, but then there were many monasteries built in regions where there were no stone around, so they will be done in brick. We are building in Brandenburg, and in the area there's no stone, and all the monasteries around were built on brick.
I see.
So we chose brick. I mean, because now you can bring materials from all over the place, but that's first of all a principle that we're not using.
You always use material that is available there.
That it's available there, and we are really trying to understand how to go back to feed the local economy with this project, and the other way around, not that the local economy feeds this project.
So a little engine of economy as a project.
Exactly.
Build.
Exactly. We're not being historicists, so we're not kind of redoing what monks did in the 11th century.
Right.
We're very clearly, I mean, the first challenge when I started, for me was very clear. It was what does it mean to build a monastery in the 21st century?
Yeah.
A monastery that has its foundations on the 11th century.
Yeah.
How do you build it today?
Yeah.
And profoundly, how do you build it today?
Yeah.
Not only how to lay up the bricks as in difference from the 11th century, but really what is all of that meaning or what are those meanings that we want to bring to the day, to the present day? No?
Yeah.
So for us, that is why in our short mind, because that's what it is, one of the questions was the internet, no?
Yeah.
And the voice was like, come on, guys.
In the big scheme of things.
This is really not a question.
Yeah.
And, but that, I mean, kind of that is now a joke and a tool for the process. No, so we were talking with the engineers, no, and now we have to also comply to the German construction code, which is really something to the present.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
And we were telling the engineers, well, that might be today, but we need a structure that lasts for 5,000 years, so that material would not last for that. And they're like, no, but we do it like this, and we're like, no. And we told them the story about the internet, and he's like, okay, I get it. So in 100 years, this material is going to be disintegrated. It's like, yeah, we have to use earth and bricks. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, the rest comes on top.
Yeah.
The rest will change. Every technology that we put in, light, every light.
The transient
water,
stuff,
everything.
The transient things will
Exactly,
be
will
more
change.
appliques.
And will change.
Yeah, will change.
Evolve, will change.
Yeah.
And I think that I always have thought of time in many different ways and in senses, and in a way as a profound friction with architecture, no? Because architecture represents its time, its moment in a very determinant and determined way.
Yes.
But it holds an ever-changing process, which is life.
Yeah.
It is on top of organic matter that is changing all the day, every day, every single second.
Yeah.
And it holds something that is also ever-changing. So for me, this friction is what gives me a lot of foundation for what I do.
That's very profound, Tatiana. I think that your perspective is very unique. I mean, you talk about living in the present, and it seems that serendipity plays a big role in your life, right? So you look for these opportunities, and or teachings or learnings from these opportunities. So that's very profound. You know, it shows there is a thread running through all of these projects, right? It's fascinating thread, be it the affordable housing and be it residences in Jalisco or San Pedro Garza or I think the Mazatlan's aquarium, which is quite another thing. I mean, I have to say that project is just captured me like anything else. And I have colleagues who also are like, yeah, talk about that, please. He said, of course, yeah, that is a curious project. First, I should say, my first experience was, my God, that has been there all along, right? It's been there forever. It is going to be there forever. And it is geological. It's almost like it has belonged to that. It is, as you described also, as a ruin. And yet it is not a ruin. It is part of that. So I mean, it just framed, I think, the subject matter in a very different way. Normally, aquariums that we think about and know are entertainment. And yet I think what you've done in Mazatlan is very profoundly different. Yeah, it is an aquarium, but it is not an aquarium. It is something for millennia, it appears.
Hopefully.
Tell me about, I mean, that is quite a powerful project.
I mean, exactly what you're describing, what the aquarium here is, or anywhere. You could be describing any aquarium. It's what I was not kind of agreeing to do. So we started doing a park, the design of the park that holds the aquarium before. And that was our commission. And we knew that they were going to have an aquarium and a museum in this
I
park.
see.
And we really were just
Were you master planning it?
we were master planning
I
the
see.
park.
Okay.
And I mean, kind of the main thing is that there is a natural regulating lagoon in this park.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why this park was never consolidated as a public space, because it had these, and nobody had imagined or had probably the resources to understand how to use this park with this condition.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. But the first thing we found out it was that this was super polluted, because all the sewage from the buildings around was thrown into this natural regulating lagoon. So the first thing we had to do was to clean these, well, to redirect the sewage, to really change that system, and to clean the lagoon. So when we were doing that physically while we were still planning the park,
Yeah.
these people came and said, you know, Tatiana, which was the same people endeavoring to do the aquarium and the museum, they already had projects for that. They had a very well advanced design on the aquarium and a conceptual idea on the museum. And they said, you know, Tatiana, we have an aquarium that doesn't look like an aquarium. So can you design an aquarium that looks like an aquarium? And like, well, first of all, I have many issues because I don't believe in aquariums.
Yeah.
Because there are these structures that I tend to think very clearly with this mural of Diego Rivera, man controller of the universe structures, no? Like we cannot dive into this world, so why don't we bring it to us? And meanwhile, we entertain the people.
Right.
And the second reason why I was really against it is like you have the most incredible, diverse, one of the most important natural aquariums of the world, 100 meters from there. Why would you want to bring it here? No? And they were like, yeah, that's exactly the thing. It's like we really want a structure that allows us to understand that that is
Connecting with it.
exactly.
I see.
And secondly, that really not only allows us to connect, but how to protect it. No,
Yeah.
so for us, that's an aquarium that looks like an aquarium. So then now we're talking business.
Yeah.
Now we're talking business. Okay, so how can we do a structure that does that? How can we do a structure that allows us to be within it and understand that this is also our ecosystem. This is also the place where we belong to. And so what I started saying is like, well, the first thing we need to understand is how to provide a platform that really allows us to make this link. So let's ask some experts, and we found that there's in Canada this organization called Oceanwise that they have done this with the aquarium of Vancouver. So that's kind of the point where everything starts to allow a system to protect, understand, learn from, and become part of the seas around. So we invited them to design the kind of the profound idea on what this institution was going to be. And then on the way, we were always thinking, then what is a building that looks like that?
Right.
No? And we couldn't find one. We said, well, there's no. And we really kind of created this story that allowed us to imagine as if we had arrived in the year 2289 into a building that we don't know why it was built, how it was used, but we just came in and saw that it was full of life. Life took over the building, and we just opened paths for people to see it. And we knew that this building was flooded in the year 2100. And then the water receded, and then we were able to see how life took over this building.
Wonderful.
No?
Well, I mean, that is just very profound, right? You're thinking on a very different scale and different scenario as well, potentially, and how this might belong to the landscape, to the systems, the living systems, and part of the geological, biological systems of the region as well is absorbed.
Absolutely. And we we really profoundly design with these ideas. So the building is a building that we don't know what it was built
Yeah.
for. So it's not designed to be an aquarium.
Exactly.
It's just a building. It's
It is
just
not
a
this. I
structure.
mean, it's tough to. It's indeterminate, and that is what is fascinating about it. That it doesn't fit into any typology.
Exactly.
It's it transcends typology.
Yes.
It transcends time,
Yes.
and it transcends a particular function too.
I believe there is a very important question there into architecture. No, if we want to think on how it to transcend in time, does typology holds? I mean, it's a question. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if
absolutely.
the answer is yes or no,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not yes or no. No, it's
Yeah.
whatever. But I think it definitely it is a question that I think we should be asking ourselves today. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A profound project with questions, not necessarily the answers, which is what is interesting about it. It doesn't make an effort to pretend to answer the questions, but rather it provides a setting where you might be able to see yourself as a human being and say, this seems to be thousands of years of a project. And that is so true. It is perhaps millions of years of project there.
Yes. Yes.
That's wonderful. And let me, if I may, turn to your methods and creative process and how that connects with what we've talked about also, the way you engage materials and local circumstance, and then you have the process. So collage and drawing are the
Yes.
two processes that you use in the design process, design development process. It's only then you engage other tools and systems and techniques. So when did you start doing that?
Very early. I mean, because when and very early was not so conscious. It was at some point, but when I came out of school, I had a very eclectic education, let's say.
Yeah.
I think it was a harsh moment because it was a moment where at least here in the United States, in Europe, there was really all these development of software-based architecture, no?
Yeah.
And in Mexico, we of course wanted to adopt those kind of new forms of doing things. It was also the moment where Mexico became global, let's
Yeah.
say. No, I remember I was studying. I was doing models at 3 a.m. and my friends were doing lines at the first McDonald's in the country. So it was like kind of this moment where Mexico started to become this global player. So we really wanted to be there, no, but we didn't have the means nor the context nor anything. No, there were many things, so we didn't have the hardware. We had sometimes the software, but we had the goal of creating this kind of new way of thinking of architecture into software-based design.
Yeah.
That it was kind of, in a way, clashing, with our context, with many of the professors also in the school, no?
Yeah.
So I had these two things.
Yeah.
So when I went out, I really felt I knew nothing on how to do architecture. That was my feeling, but then I understood I knew.
Right.
And more than knew nothing, I was very insecure of myself. I felt I didn't learn anything. I saw my colleagues, all I'm ready for the world and I am ready to do projects. And I'm like, how did you learn that? Because I didn't. And then I really, through very long process of thinking and digging into it, it was not that I didn't learn anything. It was that probably those tools that I was given, I was not kind of connecting the dots and understanding how to use them. Because I thought of architecture in a very different way, no? And I was also fighting myself to understand where. where to put my energy and how. And when I understood that for me, architecture was really a profound form of care that holds bodies to allow them to exist in this planet,
Yeah.
then I really understood that I needed different tools
Yeah.
to do it, to
Yeah.
think about it, and to represent it.
Yeah.
Because those that I was given were more about understanding how to create form.
Yeah.
But for me, form is only a tool.
Yeah.
It's a mean, and it's
Yeah.
not a goal. No.
Yeah.
So how to then use different forms of representation to think and to become process of design was a question, and I have been experimenting ever since. I mean, people stay with Tatiana collage. No, it's only a process and part of it. The story that we created for doing the aquarium is another type of
Yeah.
form of representation. No,
That's right. Yeah.
so it's not only collage. It's a lot of different types, and for me, it is because it cannot be standardized.
Yeah.
Every project, every process needs its own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to be very consistent with being very honest to that specific process.
Yeah.
Finding those specific ways of using tools and
Got it.
materials and things.
I wanted to mention that about collage, and you can tell me if this is I'm reading too much into it, or maybe you've thought about it all along, whichever way. I have worked extensively in collages too, like my undergraduate work. This was like nearly 200 sheets of collages. That's it. What I find interesting in the process is it is a non-determinate process. It is a process of discovery. It's not based on precision. It is based on meaning and discovery, right? When you're working with these collage materials, you suddenly see the ideas emerging from it that were not intended. And so you discover them, right? So I see you're nodding. That means you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and also what I found really important, I think we humans have these two conditions that are absolutely determinant for our existence, which is our internal, individual, intimate life, but our interconnectedness to the other, no? And because we are social beings, we need this, we absolutely rely on the other to exist.
Yeah.
So this interconnectedness is also what defines us, no?
Yeah.
And a collage is something that connects us.
Yeah.
And how? Because this is not only a process of discovery, it's also a process of including the other.
Exactly.
Because anybody and everybody has their own reflection and their own process at the moment they see this image.
Fascinating. I'd say, not even a joke, but I actually call our college Boston Architectural Collage.
Yes.
Right. 5 years ago at my inauguration, I said, that's an insight I gathered from understanding our community, that this is a college unlike any other. It is a collage because it comes together in ways that are not, shall we say, precise, ordered, determined in a conventional sense, but rather it is a collage of kinds. So I really find it fascinating. I think it resonates very well with who we are as such. As an institution, it is a collage. And I think as a process, it is a collage. One more thing I wanted to mention is, when I look at your collages, Tatiana, I see a very interesting connection to two literary works. One is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I consider his work to be literary collage in a way. It's one way of describing it. Obviously, it is much larger than I can describe. Like 100 Years of Solitude, or Loving the Time of Cholera. You can take any of these works. They are collages, and it brings to bear different times and lives and the dead, and everything comes together as a collage, right? And then Octavia Paz, my favorite writers of all time, right? These are two. And in Paz's poetry, also it comes in a similar way. So I see the same sensibility in how you're doing. So I'm guessing that that actually is a transformational perspective that it brought to you. Your perception is different because of the process and vice versa.
Absolutely. And I think, you know what, it's really interesting that you are talking about Paz and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, because I think that I am a collage and I live in a place where
I am a
it's
collage. I want to hold on to that. I am a collage. That is profound. That's great.
Yes.
Yes.
And it really, I think we all are.
Yeah.
And
We all
I
are.
really
Yeah.
love the idea that you approach also this place as a collage.
Yeah.
But I think that in Mexico and in these Latin American countries is very present. Every single, it's very much there because of the layers of cultures that have really profoundly defined our existence. No, so we had really these incredibly diverse array of cultures that were in our countries, and then one single culture came and colonized all of them. But then the expression of every single square meter of this continent,
Yeah.
almost Latin America, has really these very marked differences, nuances that define themselves in a very different way.
Yeah.
And this is all mixed into one territory.
Yeah.
Well, one very large territory,
Yeah.
but it's very present, no? So in Mexico City, you live this every day, you know? It's really a collage, and it's very exhibited in many ways, no? Physically and in many other ways, no? So I think that, but Paz comes from this context, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez is not the same, but it's in the similar context, you know, and of these cultures that are literally on top of each other, physically, and on the ground. You know, the Spanish built on top of Mayan temples, on Aztecs temples, Mixtecs temples, and then the modern city was built on top. You know, and then the culture is the same. No, it's one on top of the other and mixed in very interesting ways. And I think that, yes, that's my context. That's where I come from.
That's quite extraordinary, Tatiana. And I think we barely scratched the surface, right? In talking about various things. It just is getting more and more interesting as we dig deeper into it. And I have a feeling it is unfathomable.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe that is a best point to leave it at unfathomable, which I think your work, it's very profound in your process and your relationship to it, and what you're seeking, you know, is much, much larger and broader than just the architecture of it, that you are playing a role in the society, not just as the identity of an architect, but really as a human being.
Thank you.
I think that
this is so beautiful.
It comes through very clearly, because you're working on projects, uncommissioned projects in housing and such, that that's why I say you are seeking those out, and that just is extraordinary and resonates with our spirit here. So we are very grateful that you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ash. It's really, really very nice talk, very inspiring, and I'm very honored to be here. Really.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.